Folks, today I'm going to do a quick episode on procrastination and understanding procrastination. It's something that is good for every one of us to know, and it also can help relieve some of the anxiety that we have with others who may be procrastinators, because there's a lot of stigma and you can say finger pointing that happens when it comes to this area of procrastination. So the main thing here is to understand there's typically three camps of people when it comes to procrastinators or non-procrastinators. Basically, there's the first camp that whenever you get an assignment or task, they get it done immediately, right? They don't like to wait. They don't want to wait till the end of the deadline. They get it done immediately. That's the first camp. Then there's the other camp, which is they work methodically throughout the time period to get the job done by the deadline. So they're not going to start perhaps at the very nth hour, and they might start in a couple of days, but they're working throughout the time period to actually get the job done. And then there's the third camp, which a lot of people get frustrated with, which are the individuals who like to get the job done at the very last hour or very close to it, right? That's a little bit of an exaggeration, but let's just say the deadline's coming up and they haven't done any work over the last month to get the work done, and all of a sudden the deadline's due in 2 days and they're just cramming. And we all know this. I'm sure many of us have experienced this in school and the implications and the impact that it has on our performance. Now, here's the interesting thing. I think that fundamentally as leaders, what we have to understand is everybody is different. And everybody is different in terms of what is required for them to perform at their optimal level. In fact, there's a theory out there that has been tried and tested, and it's what they call the individual zone of optimal functioning, which basically means that every single human being has this optimal zone of functioning, and they operate differently based on different emotions. So some people, fundamentally, if we're taking a look at procrastination, some people require a higher level of stress and anxiety to perform. And many people think that that's what procrastination is. When someone is a serial procrastinator, it's a deliberate strategy because they require a significant amount of stress compared to the average person to be at their best, to operate at their best. And I'm sharing this because we might have people on our team that are individuals who need to get at that top end of the stress level or anxiety level to be able to perform. Now, that is different than quality of performance, because an individual who performs their best, right, or perceives their best performance to be when they are super anxious or at that high level of stress, doesn't necessarily lead to the best product. For example, if someone is doing all of their work at 2 days before the end of the deadline, they might not have enough time to get feedback from other people to modify their work to improve it. That's fundamentally it. They might be at their best performance, but it might not lead to the best outcome. So there's a difference there, and I hope we can all understand that. And that goes into play for those individuals who are procrastinators, for them to understand as well. Yes, you may perform at your best when you are at a high stress level, but that might necessarily lead to the best product. So for the rest of us who are not necessarily procrastinators, what do we need to do? We need to learn how to work our best with those individuals. So let me give you an example. You have a big project that's due in 4 weeks, right? And you have someone or a number of individuals on your team who like to procrastinate, yet you know that procrastination is going to cause your team headaches because their work is going to impact other people's work, and perhaps you need their work to be done before you can get your part of the work to be done. So what do? How do you get these people motivated? Here's one strategy that you can do is create a pseudo deadline or a milestone to create some kind of false, or I don't want to say false, pseudo level of stress and anxiety for those people to be able to perform at their optimal level. So rather than saying, hey folks, we got a deadline in 4 weeks, we have this deadline. The first part of this project is due in 1 week, and it is an absolute must, and we must all get it done. There are no exceptions. Everybody needs to be held accountable to this, and this is what the expectation is in terms of quality and output. When you say that, so when you break that 4-week deadline into smaller bits and have a very hard, stringent deadline for that, that helps with those individuals who are procrastinators, who like to have that strategy of high anxiety to perform. So those individuals don't even know that that's their strategy. They don't even know that they need to be performing at a high level of stress. So for a number of individuals, this might be a good self-awareness exercise for you to really identify, are you one of those people? Now, this applies to every single person as well, because many of us, we are working day to day and doing our tasks and checking emails, and we're going along, we're on autopilot, and we just can't figure out why we're not motivated to get something done. Maybe one of the reasons is because there's not enough stress attached to it. Perhaps there's not enough stress or excitement, which is another element, right? Stress or anxiety is on one side. The excitement can be because you're excited to actually get something done. We haven't stimulated ourselves enough to be in that, what we call that individual zone of optimal functioning. So we also have to figure out other ways to do it. We also have to perhaps come up with goals, new exciting goals, or new reasons or purpose as to why we need to get this thing done, to get ourselves excited. And I just want to quickly sum it up here. As leaders, it's very important that we understand that procrastination for many people is a strategy. But there is also the small population of individuals who procrastinate that it's not part of their strategy and it's not good at all. They just don't have a system in place. They are not organized, and they just don't have the time management skills or the planning skills to be able to get it done beforehand. So those individuals, I would say, are the exception. Those are the ones that, yeah, you may want to pick on them a little bit because they don't have their stuff together. But for those other individuals, it's really about higher stress. So as a leader, the question then is, how do you get them to that individual zone of optimal functioning without waiting till the nth hour? So that is it in a nutshell. So rather than taking a look at a procrastinator on your team and saying, what do I do with this person? Maybe I need to change this person out. Maybe it's about thinking, how do you as a leader really shift things a little bit so that they are more likely to be in that individual zone of optimal functioning? One last bit here. I talk about it from a leadership perspective, which is very, very important. But I also say that those individuals need to be aware of their own level of performance. So you as a leader could look out for these things. But if that person doesn't know themselves inside and out, they're not going to be at optimal performance regardless of what you try to do as a leader. So the best way to get them to be high performers is to get them educated on high performance themselves. And therefore, you as a leader can create that climate of high performance. And that's another episode on its own. That's a completely different subject. And I think that's an area that many organizations are falling short on. But in this case, it's okay to be a procrastinator. It's okay to have procrastinators on your team because they are or can be high performers. We just need to nurture them appropriately.